Whoa! You're not Josh.
I am not Josh.
Well, welcome to Weird Faith. We're going to figure out who this guy is here in a second. But we're so excited to have you here with us. And we're looking forward to spending some time talking about our community. So tell us who you are, sir.
My name is John Messenger,
Also known as
John 2.0.
there he is.
I'm originally from Morgantown. I was born in Simi Valley, California, but I've lived here in Clarksburg for the past 13 months. And I've had the pleasure of meeting these gentlemen, and I've decided to make Clarksburg home, which I once upon a time thought I would never ever say, but here we are.
Here we are.
I
So,
like
yeah.
Clarksburg.
It's not bad.
I like it. It's got some
Yeah.
good food, some good people. I love the old buildings. I'm a big.
Oh yeah.
Well, I lived in like in LaGrange, Georgia, for a long time, and there was like no old buildings. Like everything. I mean, there was like an old Kmart. I don't know if that counts, but the historic buildings here
Probably
are.
a Hobby Lobby now.
Yeah, it actually is.
See, look at that.
Yeah, and ours is too, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really cool to be able to walk up and down. We used to go to lunch a couple blocks away at my mother's daughter, and it was always neat just to walk down and just look up at the buildings. It's cool living in an old community. I
Yeah.
really love it.
But so John kind of said it too. We're gonna talk a little bit about our community, and none of us are from Clarksburg originally. A year ago, I moved around the same time John came to Clarksburg, and I did a sermon about engaging our community. And I made a joke about I rely on Phil and Josh to tell me more about Clarksburg. And someone came up to me afterwards and said, "Why don't you ask some people who actually lived here a long time about the city?" So I'm like, well,
Roasted.
I haven't taken up on that offer, and today they're going to tell me more about Clarksburg, the place that they're not from. And according to
we can make up whatever we
Wikipedia and what other
Sure.
things you found on Google, it
Yeah.
may not be true at all. I don't know. But before you do that, what?
The funny thing is, though, people tell me all the time, like, that I've been to more places than they have been in West Virginia. They're like, oh, I've never been. So, for instance, I don't know if you guys have been there, but in Fairmont, there's an old prison or jailhouse where you can go and tour. And I'm trying to remember who it was. Oh, the sheriff would live there, and his family and everything. They had like 8 people that would live there in this house right next to the courthouse. And you walk out the back of their living room, and there's like 12 cells. And the legend goes that they would let the inmates babysit their kids.
It just makes sense if you have them there
Right.
together
Yeah,
already.
absolutely. Hey, watch these kids. Make sure they're okay. I'm sure that was back in like the times of.
That's before the TV show Scared Straight.
Sure.
Like, these
Well,
kids probably had just the best record ever.
Yes. And you think about like Andy Griffith,
Oh, yeah.
where the drunk guy would
Otis.
just go let himself in and sit down. So I'm sure it was one of those type of situations where they were probably fine people. They just,
No, it's true.
dry out a little bit.
I've lived in West Virginia since 1998, and I feel like you've been to more places than I have.
Yeah. Have you
Mostly
been to the Charleston, like the West Virginia Museum?
Where
It's
is
really
it?
cool in Charleston.
No,
Yeah, you lived closer. Well, Huntington's pretty close.
30
right?
minutes.
30,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I mean, I like in most of my life I spent on the other side of the state,
Right.
and so most things I'm over here I'm learning for the first time.
Mhm.
So you were born in California. You've lived in Morgantown. You also lived in.
So I lived in Cheyenne, Wyoming for a while.
That's cool.
Yeah.
It's totally different. I mean, I really like the Rocky Mountains, and I
Mhm.
don't recommend winter out there. Though
Yeah.
you're really exposed to the
It's
wind,
pretty
and
rough.
you get wind, like snow drifts and other crazy things happen to you while you're driving out there that we just aren't as exposed to out here because of our
Snow blindness.
topography.
You ever get that?
no.
No, that's what. So when you ski and snowboard a lot, like as a drop, like just a little braggadociousness.
We all want to see Phil ski. I want to see that.
I'm better
happen.
at snowboarding.
Okay.
I've snowboarded most of my life.
I am
but
terrible
I'm
at skiing.
old now, and it hurts. But if you don't wear goggles that are tinted, the light reflecting off the snow can give you some problems.
Phil just said he was old. Real quick story. Like 2 weeks ago, we were at the West Virginia Baptist Convention, and which was in Parkersburg. and the three of us were hanging out in Eric Seckman's office, who's the worship leader at South Parksburg Baptist.
Shout out.
Just hanging out, messing around with his office, drawing funny pictures on his whiteboard. And someone came in and just said, "Who are you all?" And they knew me. But I said, "Hey, this is the staff of CBC." And she's like, "Good Lord." And looked at Phil. She's like, "How old are you? Are you the youngest?" Between he and I. So I don't know.
Being short is a great. That's what you should get some surgery done, not like a
To be shorter.
facelift or anything. Just become
The
shorter.
funny part was then she looked at Josh like, "What are you, 10 years old?"
Yeah, right. The funny thing is, like, I have so much white,
It's the
especially
gray.
right now.
You have more gray than
Yeah,
I do.
I need
but
to trim it, and that would help. But
yeah. Anyways.
you're
But
probably the youngest out of all of us, right?
He's older
right
than me,
now,
right?
I mean.
I believe I'm older than Scott. I'm turning
Okay.
35 in December.
Look
I turn
great,
32
man.
next
You
weekend.
don't look a day over 32.
Why, thank you.
You've lived all over.
Yep. I was born in Pennsylvania, in Chester County Community Hospital. I think that's what it was called. My mom worked there for a long time after that. But I stayed there for a couple decades, 22 years or something like that. And then I moved to Arkansas, Hot Springs, Arkansas, and I went to college there. And from there, I met my wife, and we got married and moved to Missouri, Cape Girardeau, Missouri, which is a place that Scott also lived when you, from
from 1 to 6.
1 to 6. So I was a little bit older. I was probably 25, and it was different times.
Different times, not at that time. Phil's lying about his age now.
Yeah,
He's actually 52.
So, and then I moved to Georgia and was there for like 8 years near Savannah, which you said you were near Savannah too for a while.
I lived in Georgia
in the military,
for about a year. Yeah.
right? Yeah, and then LaGrange, Georgia, which is where I met Josh. I was there for 5 years, I think, and then we've been here 6 years. And this is actually the longest. This is the longest I've ever lived in a house since I've gotten married, and we really love this community.
Yeah. I was born in Louisville, Kentucky. Louisville. And my family moved when I think I was actually like 10 months old. Right around the same time as like the Mississippi flooding, like back in 92.
How did you handle the move?
Oh, it was really tragic.
Yeah.
It was a really
rough on you.
dark period of my life. I didn't have much to bring with me, so it was pretty easy actually.
Little
But
bag.
moved to Cape Girardeau, Missouri. Was a cool place to live, but then we moved to West Virginia in 1998. And other than 3 years in Huntington, when I went to Marshall, I lived in Parkersburg. I claim it as home. But then Kate and I moved here last year. And one of the things I wanted to talk about today, and one of the reasons why we're talking about this is when I moved here last year, and you kind of alluded to this, I think, too. I think I had, even on the other side of the state, I had a perception of Clarksburg. Because the only thing I ever did was just drive through it on 50 on my way to Pittsburgh,
Right.
or that's about it. I actually don't think I ever really went anywhere else. But I had this perception, and I didn't know exactly what it was. But when I came my very first Sunday, on the side of the building, it said, "We love Clarksburg." And I've seen a lot of churches say that over the years. They'll put on little church signs. By the way, church signs are the best. We love church signs, so send us your funniest church signs. There are some in our own community that are really fun to look at. But anyways, I saw this big sign that said, "We love Clarksburg." And I've seen a lot of churches say that, and I didn't know that they actually meant it. But I've seen it over the last year that we actually genuinely love this community. And the three of us here, that's one of the reasons why we're going to talk about this. But I want to know more about Clarksburg. So they're going to tell me some historical facts. Could be fun, could be funny, could be terrible. I don't know what you all got. I'm looking forward to this.
So both you were in Morgantown a long time. You were in Parkersburg. And one thing I've learned in 6 years, and this might be a little bit controversial,
Bring
but
it.
nobody hates Clarksburg more than people that live there. They talk so much about it. I love it. I think it's amazing.
It is true.
The history that's involved, the buildings and how cool it is. The food is amazing.
Oh, food's amazing.
I've lived in other places and where it just was, Applebee's. That's as far as the eye could see. It was just
Parkersburg
Applebee's.
is only chain restaurants.
Right?
There's
Yeah.
like 2 good local joints. I've taken you to both of them.
Sure. Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
But the rest of them are just
Yeah.
chains.
And so that's a joke that they say about Philadelphia sports. I claim that I lived like 30 minutes from there most of my life. At some point, I'm not going to be able to say that anymore. It's not that much longer, maybe 4 years or something like that. But that's one of the things they say. Nobody hates Philadelphia sports more than people that live in Philadelphia.
People that live in Philadelphia.
And it's booing them all the time. But if you go in the comments on anything, the mayor recently put up signs that say, "See something, say something." I don't know if that does anything. I like it. It's fine. But so many people had opinions about it, and they were mad about it. And it's
So
like,
one was kind of in front of my
sure,
house.
yeah, right, yeah,
And I learned that there's a history behind why it was there, and I don't want to get into that.
Sure.
Ask some of your local friends.
yeah.
But my neighbor, it was actually out in front of his house. He lost it and thought this was crazy, and then like it got moved.
Right, yeah.
It's now one block
Yeah.
down on a light post. But someone said it was actually like on a post in his yard that was like put there, not on
Okay.
a light post. I'm like, well, that's different. I'd be
Sure,
mad about
yeah,
that
I
too.
get that. Yeah, I
But
get it.
yeah,
But you'll see that too, like where somebody steps in a mud puddle. Huh. This is why Clarksburg's the worst. This kind of stuff doesn't happen anywhere else. Like, dude, that happens everywhere. Like, we all have crime. We all have problems.
well, I had a friend after it was like 2 months after we moved here. They were passing through. They took a picture, and it was actually the exit towards our house of a Clarksburg exit. It said, "What a great place to live," said no one ever. I'm like, what a jerk.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
I love my house. I love my
Yeah,
little
right,
neighborhood.
Right. Anyway, I love Clarksburg, and I think
do.
you should love it if you live in this area, or if you live in Parkersburg or Morgantown. Stop talking so much bad about it.
We're gonna
Let's
talk
talk
about that in a little bit.
Ohio or Pennsylvania or
Yeah,
some other
let's all agree
state.
Ohio is actually the worst.
Boo. Yeah. What do they got? Cleveland.
That's
LeBron James used to live there.
Yeah, he's left twice.
Yeah.
Take a hint. What do y'all got though? What's some fun
I'll let
stuff?
you start. We got some history facts, I think, and some other weird little things. Some of mine are not flattering, but it just adds to the history.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Well, I'm going to make an observation first, and then I'll give you guys one of the facts I found before I give it over to you. My observation from walking through the city of Clarksburg and being reminded by the picture here on this Wikipedia is that the courthouse here looks like it's straight out of Batman.
Absolutely.
Like it looks like it could be in Gotham City. It's
Yes.
Never thought of that.
So
You
I'd
never
like to.
have?
No, it does.
Are you serious? You
I never
have?
thought of that.
Yeah.
I'd definitely be
Art
super
Deco,
interested.
I think is
Oh,
what
yeah.
it is.
I think
right?
there
Yeah.
definitely has to be some architectural story
been in
or
it?
some famous
Yeah.
architect or somebody that would be behind that.
Absolutely.
So with that out of the way,
I gotta look this up real quick.
I found a story about Clarksburg called the Mountaineer Militia. And apparently, back in October of 1996, 7 men that had connections with the Mountaineer Militia, which was a local anti government paramilitary group, were arrested on charges of plotting to blow up the FBI's Criminal Justice Information Services Division in Clarksburg.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and these gentlemen had plans. They had the bombs. They had everything. And I guess somewhere along their chain of, business that you do when you're creating bombs and planning to blow up an FBI building, they had a leak that led to an undercover officer infiltrating their ring for some time, getting the trust of the guy, trying to get him to sell him the plans for the FBI building. The FBI agent claimed he was a terrorist looking to also blow up FBI buildings, and I guess that they were all caught. The plans were somehow leaked to him through some fire. What's that called? A firefighter.
Yeah.
Some firefighter or some other local service or first responder. But in 1998, the gentleman was sentenced to 18 years in prison.
Shoo.
2 other defendants were also sentenced
Hey, he's been
on
getting out in like a
explosive
couple
charges.
years.
Uh-oh.
Actually, I think if the math, he'll be out in the next 2 years
Oh,
or so.
no.
I
hide-
know of a lot
hide
of
your
people who work there.
blueprints.
They're
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say, if you don't know this area very well, FBI, a pretty big,
It's a
I'm
huge-
sure there's other ones around the country too, but they're pretty big conglomerate. I think it's like a couple thousand people work
Oh, yeah.
there, I think. And there are
Absolutely.
definitely some in our church that do, but that's scary, man.
It is. So hide your blueprints.
Yeah, right.
Just keep them safe.
Goodness.
What you got?
Well, so I'm going to go back a little bit further. For those that don't know, Virginia and West Virginia are not the same place.
What?
Yeah, right. Yeah. If you go to other places in the United States, they just assume that like Richmond is in West Virginia or, some of these other cities that are like that.
The question, the most common response I've had my entire life was, "Oh, I live in West Virginia. Oh, how far west? Roanoke?"
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah.
I just stare at him. I'm like,
Yeah.
It-
Further west than
there's a thing called the Civil War.
Yeah, exactly, right.
Let's do a little history lesson.
Yeah, exactly. And that's that was what I wanted to talk about here is there was not really a major battle that was fought here in Clarksburg. There was in Philippi,
Mhm.
I believe. But it was a pretty big depot for supplies for the Union troops. Nowadays you might think, well, Maybe West Virginia fits more with the South vibe.
It's a weird vibe. I don't really know what it is.
Yeah, I don't think it fits with anything. I think it's its own
It's a
thing,
unique thing.
completely. But they were part of the Union, and they voted in Wheeling, West Virginia, to secede from Virginia because Virginia had voted to secede from the Union, and Clarksburg had 7,000 soldiers camped in the city at one point just to prepare to defend all the supplies and the supply lines that they had to go down south further. So that's pretty cool.
That's cool.
And also, I mean, Stonewall Jackson was born here.
Right.
One of the bigger people on the Confederate side.
Right.
Spoiler alert: they lost. But
Yeah.
but his sister, interestingly enough, was very pro-union, and we have down on Main Street a little museum dedicated to her, which is pretty cool.
Did you know that one of the names considered for our state was Columbia?
Mm, did not.
They chose West Virginia. Just saying. I mean, there were other options.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when the Washington football team had to get a new name, and they're like, "What are we gonna do?" And they chose the Commanders, and everybody's like, yeah, it's okay."
Yeah, Clarksburg,
There's better
Columbia
options.
doesn't sound.
It
as
doesn't
good.
really. It kind of just doesn't flow.
No.
Yeah. What you got?
So another thing that I have heard a lot about amongst people that I interact with around here, and then also I had read in a book, is that Clarksburg was home to like a really really big marble factory,
Yeah.
called Acro Gate, I think is how you say it, and they were over by like Height Field and things like that. And I guess for many years, they manufactured all kinds of marbles that we probably played with as kids. I mean, they were very common. And I guess they chose Clarksburg for several reasons. Most importantly was the abundance and availability of natural gas and sand.
Mm.
Both are very important in the glassmaking industry, evidently.
Yeah,
Didn't know that.
that's pretty cool. People still talk about trying to go and dig them up. They don't want you to. It's a park now. But if you go around to antique stores, sometimes they'll have. I need to get some. It'd
Some
be cool to
Acro
have.
Gates.
How do
Yeah.
they know specifically that they're
I don't know.
there? Is it the
I'm not-
style?
Yeah, it must be. I'm not sure.
Feels
how
like
they
the
figured that out.
Parkersburg area, you had Fenton Glass was like the main.
Mhm.
It's actually Williamstown, and everyone like blue glass was kind of like their main
Right.
thing that they did, and then they did like a specific hand painted design, so you knew the
Right.
kind of glass based off of that. They had a certain kind of like formation of glass too. So I don't know if marbles were the same thing or
I want to say, I don't know if you have this, John, but there was one, like 9 glass factories here
oh wow.
at one point. Say it's somewhere. It's
all
either
throughout,
7
all
or
throughout
9.
West Virginia, there were a bunch.
Right.
There's
Yeah.
multiple ones in
There's
Parkersburg.
still a place that you can go in Weston where it's a glass. You can buy different vases, get
Ooh.
fancy. But you can also see them blow glass, and they'll do it right there in front of you, down by that barbecue place. So it's a nice, good day. And the
if
transatlantic.
Mark Evans would ever ask us to
I
come down and have
know, right?
barbecue, we'd
Yeah.
go tour the glass factory.
Yep, absolutely. So one of the cool things that they do here is the Italian Heritage Festival. There's a very big
Oh, yeah.
Italian, what do you call it? Like presence, influence. Yeah. Apparently a big migration from Europe and especially Italy came to work in the mines. And so that's part of the reason we have such great food. But the Italian Heritage Festival started in 1979 because of the big influence of the Italian people all in north central West Virginia, which you didn't really see in Parkersburg. Did they talk about that in Morgantown much?
No, not
No,
really. This is
yeah.
the first I'd ever heard
Right.
of it.
Yeah. So the very first one was in 1979, and they had 80,000 visitors come. They say now that we have about 30,000 over the
That's
course of a
crazy.
couple days that will come through, and it's pretty fun. If you got little kids, you had little kids.
Yeah, we were
It's
walking.
not as fun with little kids.
We were walking through. We were probably there like 20 minutes, and
Yeah.
it was just a lot of people, especially with 2 little kids, and we were all really hungry.
Yes.
And I'm all for all things Italian food, and so is Katie. But try to find something our kids would eat
Right.
that wasn't $35
Your
per
daughter's
person, and
2.
4 and 2.
Yeah. So a meatball hoagie wasn't going to.
It wasn't gonna do a thing.
The food vendors were excellent.
Absolutely.
But
yeah.
like the only thing that they would have had was probably like from a fried food truck.
Right.
And so I
Hot
finally
dog
looked
or
at
something.
Sadie. I'm like, "What do you want to eat?" As we're walking through, she's like, "Texas Roadhouse," and so we left him with the Texas Roadhouse. So yeah,
I've got a picture here from the very first one, which has Joe DiMaggio in this car. He's all the way there in the right on the in the black suit, and you can actually see the street that our church is on. Behind it, to the right, is the Robinson Grand. You cannot really see our church real well, but you can see the Life Center,
Life
which the
Center,
church
yeah.
used to own. So that's pretty cool. He's older there, obviously, but uh,
Very cool.
yeah, absolutely. There you go. Italian Heritage Festival. Come check it out sometime.
Next September.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't bring your little kids.
Someone told me, I'm not sure how accurate this is. Like it was like at one point, 70% of the population was
How
Italian,
many?
70%,
Oh, wow.
or
Yeah,
it
not
had
sure.
Italian roots.
Roots, yeah.
So it was like not as evident as we've gotten further
Mhm.
away from it. But
Right.
Apparently,
don't know.
Glen Elk was one
Right.
of the the main home areas
Yeah.
for a
I
lot
think
of
they
the
have a
Italian.
designation of from the National Registry of like Little Italy over there.
Right.
Yeah.
that's cool.
But you work at the mission? Is that right?
I do. I
Yeah.
work at the
Yeah.
Clarksburg,
Which is the Clarksburg missions over there.
Yeah.
It's a pretty cool spot. I love the stained glass right across from the mission that's got
Oh,
the
yeah.
boot, the Italy. It's pretty
Uh-huh.
cool. Hopefully one day they'll fix that building up and make it something cool.
It'd be cool to see a lot of revitalization
Yeah,
over there.
absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
There's just a lot of really cool
Great
buildings
opportunity.
with a lot of history. In
I
it.
like going over to Julio's to eat.
Mm-hmm.
And when I walk in there, I'm like, this clearly was a hot spot
Yeah.
for like mafia presidents.
Yes,
like
right,
you walk in and like, yeah, I know what kind of business.
Pasta fagioli.
Right
is the
there
best
next,
thing they
right
have
next
there,
to next
yeah.
to the train center. You like, okay, I know what kind of
Yeah.
business y'all are
Yeah.
doing. I have never been privileged enough to sit anywhere except for the front booths in the front
Oh,
room. I'm
really?
like, one day I'll see what secret business dealings y'all
Yeah.
privileged people get to do in the back room.
I haven't been there in a long time. For the first few years, it was really hard for me not to say Julio's.
Julio's.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because that's how it's spelled. But yeah,
Jordan
That's how I
Gwynn,
would say it.
Jordan
right,
Gwynn
yeah.
rebuked me and said it was
I'm sure,
Julio's.
yeah,
So thank you,
right.
Jordan.
yeah.
Yeah. What
What do
else?
you got, John?
So apparently, along the road to our Veterans Memorial Park, there are Indian burial mounds that are thought to be constructed by the Hopewell Indians between the years AD 1 and 1000.
Man,
That's some super.
insane.
I
Yeah,
know some
Yeah.
people who were around back
yeah, some good people.
then.
Yeah, that's always. It's hard for me. It's neat in ways to think about it, but then it's sad. Like,
Absolutely.
so I was there's one, I think it's over in Marietta. There's some mounds over
Mhm.
there. And I went to one and there was this huge burial mound in the center of this cemetery where there also was like Revolutionary War people that were buried. And it just felt so wrong.
It does feel wrong.
Have
when
you
hear
been there?
that.
Yeah. And that was one of the ones that's like, I feel bad,
Right.
But it is important to remember that there were people
Yeah.
here. Discovering
new
America
world.
is kind of a problematic word because
Absolutely.
there was already people here.
Yeah.
We can discover Mars maybe if we go there. I don't know. Maybe there are people there.
Well,
too.
someone. Yeah. Well,
I got one more kind of random and fun one here that just caught my eye, and I thought originally it was going to explain the courthouse that we were talking about earlier, but
Mm.
it says the Harrison County Courthouse on Main Street in Clarksburg has displayed the flagstaff from the USS West Virginia, which was sunk at Pearl Harbor.
Mm.
A memorial for all of Clarksburg's many immigrants located on the plaza, as well as the statue of Stonewall Jackson.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
I didn't know about.
that's
I'll
cool,
have to. During the Prohibition era, their family that was known as the mafia in this place was the Familia Vagabonda, which means the wandering family. And it was an organized crime syndicate operating in Clarksburg and nearby Fairmont. They originally formed to protect Italians who were in the new country. There was a lot of racism against Italian people in the beginning, but as they got greedy and wanted power, they began to extort the Italian people for protection, and then also other communities for profit. And we've got a picture here of first the picture of the people that were arrested
This
in.
one?
Yep. That's part of the family arrested in Fairmont, which is kind of weird. I'm guessing that was after, and they're like, "Hey, you guys, everybody, get in. We gotta get closer to each other. We gotta take a
Real quick
picture as
photo.
we arrest you here." But they were known also as the Black Hand was their name, which refers also to a form of extortion.
is that not the clan from The Office with Dwight?
The fist.
The Fist.
Yeah,
Okay.
actually, in the Marvel universe, I think
So there's something else.
what's the guy's name? Oh, Iron Fist. I
Iron
think they're
Fist.
named the Black Hand, the bad guys in that.
Gotcha.
But they also got involved in
All
other
connected.
things eventually, when gambling, drug trafficking, bootlegging, prostitution, kidnapping, and racketeering. They gained national attention, which ultimately led to that arrest that we saw. in 1923 after 15 years of crime and mayhem. Several of the family were arrested, and in conjunction with the murder of Frank Naples. But here's a pretty crazy thing. You talked about a plot to blow up the FBI. I've got an article here, and I don't know if you'll be able to
It's kind of hard
to see it, but I'll read it
Yeah.
for you.
Oh, I can
It
see
just
that.
blocks out Phil.
Plot to blow up Clarksburg.
Oh, let's
The
do
Black
that.
Hand. This is from the Exponent, I think it said it was, which is the Clarksburg. It definitely was a Clarksburg area newspaper. But the Black Hand may have had intentions of performing some of its murderous work in this city. There was strong indication that such a movement is on, and one of the most startling discoveries in the history of the city was made at early hours on Saturday morning. Worse indeed would have been if it successfully executed than the throwing of a bomb. So 3 feet down here from the Waldemore, the outline there in a bush, they found a box that was full of dynamite, 60
Wow.
pieces of dynamite. It was a foot wide and a foot tall, and it was partially open. So people saw that red color and they're like, "Oh, we better
That's
check this
dynamite.
out." Yeah, exactly. And the discovery was made, and they removed the perilous box and the contents without anything bad happening. But actually, we could probably see if we stepped out on the street where this bomb was placed.
That would be huge.
Yeah, absolutely. So luckily, though, that bomb didn't blow up either. So the police took care of it.
Anything else y'all got?
The Robinson Grand Theater.
Ooh.
So apparently, built in 1912, it was only the 13th theater in the United States to be wired for sound. And
Look
then
at
it
that.
was gutted by a fire in 1938 and restored in the following year. But the 13th, I mean, that's like cutting edge.
Yeah. I know they were one of the first places to have air condition in the area, too.
Wow.
They have a plaque in there about that if you've never
The
toured.
Grand?
Yeah.
So I still have not been in there.
Yeah, you should go check it out.
Well, so
We should just walk over there. They'll
my-
let us look
well,
at it.
I feel like I want my first time to go over there to be for like some kind of meaningful like
Sure, right. Yeah.
show or concert or something. And every time there's been anything worth going to, it's sold out.
Yeah.
The
I'm going
last
to
time I considered going was when that one Puppy Pals from America's Got
Oh,
Talent
yeah,
was
yeah,
there. I'm
yeah.
like, I'll take the kids.
There you go. Yeah.
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
I'll go to sleep.
Mel and I are going to go to the comedian on Saturday.
Yeah.
That'll be pretty fun.
That'd be
So,
fun. You got one more, right?
Yep. So Harry Powers, not
Always
Harry
good.
Potter, even though it is, the Halloween. This is a pretty scary thing too. He was one of the
Is
West
that Robert
Virginia's-
Mitchum?
Who?
Is that Robert Mitchum on the bottom?
Oh, that's from a movie. Maybe that is him. Is
That's
that a Western star or
Yeah.
something? Yeah. Okay, you know more that. It's not John Wayne.
I'm
I
an
know
old
that.
soul.
But Harry Powers is one of West Virginia's most notorious killers. He was the guy up on the top. He's known for his use of the Lonely Hearts ads placed in newspapers to lure his victims in. So they called him like the Lonely Hearts killer. He was born in the Netherlands under the name Herman Drenthe, which I can understand why he changed his name. But he went under several other aliases, such as Cornelius O. Pearson, and he was married in 1927, and he lived in Quietdale, which is, you know where the 7-Eleven is,
Mhm.
off the 79 down there. He used this alias, and he took out these ads in the newspaper, professing to be a wealthy widower seeking love, and he received as many as 10 to 20 responses a day from women that wanted to marry him. Here's the posting that he said: wealthy widower worth $150,000 with income from $400 to $300,000 a month. Civil engineer, very fine looking man of 38. And he says, my business enterprises prevent me from making many social friends. I'm therefore unable to make acquaintance of the right kind of woman. As my properties are located throughout the Middle West, I believe I will settle there when married. I'm an elk and a mason, which is the clubs he's not talking about like a deer. I don't know if you know about that. But he owned a beautiful 10-room house. It's good he didn't say a moose, right? An elk and a moose. The Moose Lodge. Own a beautiful 10-room house, completely furnished, which is that's a sticking point. It's a
That's it.
10-room house. If you don't have any furniture, I'm not coming.
Yeah, if it's like one room is furnished, all of
Nah.
it.
But my wife would have her own car and plenty of spending money, but she must be strictly a one-man woman. I would not tolerate any infidelity. I am now living in West Virginia. So he put these things out there. He'd have 10 to 20 women a day that would write him back, and he would write back a bunch of people. And he actually did sadly claim at least 5 lives of women that came to visit him there in Quietdale. He built like a garage and had a basement underneath, the whole, terrible
The
thing.
whole weird thing.
Yeah. And so how he got caught was one of the women that were missing she lived in Illinois, I think Park Ridge, Illinois. And she, in 1931, she still had some of his letters. So they called here in Clarksburg and said, hey, we're looking for this Cornelius O, whatever his name was. And they're like, there's no one living here by that name. So then they began to start investigating this area and found this guy and brought him in for questioning. This is a kind of interesting part of the story that I thought was just telling of how things worked a little bit more back then. Powers initially did not admit to killing, but he eventually did admit to the killings after falling down the stairs during questioning. So I could bet that probably isn't how they got that information out of him. And even photos from his arrest, they revealed 2 black eyes and heavy bruising on his face.
From falling down the stairs.
Yeah, from falling down the stairs. An angry mob tried to get him in when he was being arrested so that they could enact their own sentence. And he was later moved to Moundsville and was later executed after the trial that lasted for 5 days. So the picture that you saw with, what did you say it was, Robert Meacham?
Robert Mitchum.
Mitchum. Isn't that is the deodorant guy? Isn't that a Mitchum? Okay. But this is from a movie called The Night of the Hunter. First, it was a book, a thriller novel that was based on his life. It's a decent amount different in this story. He was a preacher for some reason, which I'm offended by. He wasn't a preacher at all, but yeah, I get it. Pretty creepy sometimes. But they're actually showing it on November 12th over at the Robinson Grand.
There you go.
There's your first.
It's a good excuse
Go watch
to
a Robert
go.
Mitchum film.
Yeah, exactly. About
deodorant.
and local
You
Clarksburg.
don't know who Robert Mitchum is?
Ah.
He was in El Dorado with John Wayne and Longest Day with John Wayne. Yeah.
At what point did he do the deodorant thing?
I have no idea. Talking about the Old Spice guy?
No.
What are you
There's
talking
one
about?
called Mitchum.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
don't know.
Yeah.
I was noticing that
It's an old school one.
So did Mr. Powers actually have love tattooed across his knuckles?
I don't know, but that would be an interesting thing to figure out.
Artistic expression and
Right,
liberty
yeah.
that the director took with that.
Yeah, that was how he introduced himself to the women. That I'm a, you could tell by the way I have a tattoo that I'm a ladies' man. No time to talk. It says love.
Oh man,
That's all I got. You got
That's
anything
awesome.
else, John?
Nothing notable.
Do you approve any of these messages? I've wanted to say that this whole time.
Oh,
My name's
no.
John Messenger.
I
and
approve this message.
Wow. No, so it was actually interesting. It was like right when I was getting ready to move, I was in the middle of a class for seminary where I had to do a community analysis. And so the fact that I was actually moving, like I knew the Middle Ohio Valley, which is Parkersburg, Williamstown, all those places, I knew those really well. I could probably just easily spout out all the things about it. But I was like, I want to learn my new community.
Right.
And so I did I've actually done it twice now with seminary, done a community analysis. It's interesting to learn the history like we talked about, but also every community has layers.
Yes.
Right. And so one of the things I've always found interesting about Clarksburg since I moved here were all the neighborhoods that have names. Like you mentioned Glen Elk earlier.
Right.
We have Staley. We have, I live in Goff Plaza,
Northview,
Adamston. Like that is foreign to me. I'm not sure about wherever you
me
all
too.
lived before. Never seen that. I know in like Parkersburg, I actually lived in Beechwood, but no one ever referred to it as Beechwood.
Right.
Like if you're driving through on a map, it like literally pops up Beechwood, but nobody knows what that means except there's 2 churches named Beechwood.
Right.
But I have been told, and I've looked this up for accuracy, that a lot of those neighborhoods were zoning law prevented other people from living there. So you get back to the age of segregation, like that was actually keeping a lot of people out of certain neighborhoods. One of the communities, I can't remember which one it was, which neighborhood said no Italians. I'm like in a very Italian area, like that's a pretty bold statement to make. And the interesting thing about this community, like we kind of said earlier, is kind of unique. a friend of ours who works for the Baptist Convention, Mark McCloy, he did his doctorate on the 6 different people groups of West Virginia.
Mm,
I said, I think you're missing one
mm,
because the Clarksburg area kind of has its own feel
right.
because of the Italian influence, because of other influences, and it's just a really random spot. You and I were speaking somewhere at an event right after I moved here, and I made the comment. I said, I have no idea why there's so many Italians here. And then I got the worst explanation. Do you remember this?
Oh yeah.
Worst explanation I've ever had, like geographically and historically inaccurate.
Yeah.
They said, well, it started in Philadelphia. They went over to Pittsburgh, saw I-79, went south, settled in Clarksburg. I said, y'all know 79 wasn't even there yet. But okay, sure. They didn't like Philadelphia. They didn't like Pittsburgh, but they settled for Clarksburg.
Yep.
But I do want to say thank you to I'm glad they're here because we have pepperoni rolls.
Yeah,
I love
absolutely.
pepperoni rolls. Those are a great
Muriel's.
thing. Muriel's. The other ones.
Do you favor the hot pepper cheese ones, or what's yours?
I like them all.
I love all of them.
All right.
His mom makes some good pepperoni.
I think homemade are still better than anything you can buy in the store.
Tomorrow's are pretty awesome.
They are pretty awesome.
Especially if they're hot.
Yeah.
The Nunzios are pretty good too.
But yeah.
Home Industries.
Yeah, they're good. They're all good.
They're
I like
all
all
good.
of them.
But it's interesting. So if you do like an analysis of our community, so Harrison County alone has about 70,000 residents, which is not huge, but it does have a lot of people on a kind of a. I always joke that Clarksburg seems to be, from a development standpoint, it's like we ran out of space. Let's blow up that hill and build something on top of that.
Absolutely.
And it's like, let's find another hill to move into. And then we're all kind of on top of each other in these neighborhoods.
Yep.
So it's a lot of people in a couple of different valleys. But of that 70% or 70,000, it's a melting pot of different ethnicities because of the Italian influence. Even there's some other minority groups that are here. But Clarksburg alone has 16,000 people. And one of the things Phil mentioned earlier, I've noticed it just in only living here for a year. Sometimes we are pretty negative about our own town. And a lot of it, I think, is rooted in what it used to be.
Sure.
I know a lot of people, live through a lot of different change and transformation of the city. They talk about the heyday of Clarksburg, where they talk about 80,000 people coming to Italian Heritage. I'll be honest, if 80,000 people came to downtown, I might leave. That's a lot of people. Like just on Main Street alone, that's too many people.
I don't care about Joe DiMaggio that much.
Yeah.
If I saw him now, like
maybe that would be freaky.
as his ghost.
But like, so it, and people talk, it has declined. There has been a population decline, which West Virginia has seen a lot in the last several decades, as well as, industries have changed, economy has changed. But, some of the sad statistics of this area, if you don't know this part, is that 24% of residents in Clarksburg alone are below the poverty line, which in the national average is 11% below the poverty line. And that can be seen. I think some studies show that if one person in one home makes about $14,000, that's the poverty line. Wow. 2 people home, that's 28,000. So imagine that many people in this community living below that.
Right.
And then you factor in West Virginia, whereas it has the highest amount of overdoses of any state. And I think we've seen that in Clarksburg, just the lack of over the years, the lack of attention given to that. But also, where is it? We are in the bottom 5 states as far as people receiving treatment and rehabilitation for drug use.
Wow.
And then you factor in the homelessness crisis, the mental health crisis. There's a lot of layers to this community. And you factor in the segregation of the 60s and 70s, and that has left a lasting impact. We've talked about it as like, if you don't know the history of Clarksburg Baptist Church, and there is some hard history that I know you guys talked about, and we'll get this in a second, but in 2020, I believe you guys went to like a local gathering. You heard some kind of horror stories, and you want to share anything about that?
Yeah, well, so some of it is, when you're a church that's 175 years old and it was around during the Civil War, it's churches were not as good as they should have been back then in a lot of ways. And so, where there's a church a couple blocks away, Mount Zion Baptist Church, that we have a really good relationship right now, because we've put in some effort and they've put in some effort, and we've really grown to love each other. But it hasn't always been that way. A lot of times it's not out of purposeful, it's just a lack of attention, or one pastor is there that does a really good job at it, and then they leave and move on, and things fall through the cracks sometimes. And when you're going through your own stuff as a church, sometimes you take your eyes off of, other things that you should do. But yeah, there's been some unfortunate history in America.
Yeah.
And, so we definitely.
And so,
took part in that.
when we talk about, trying to love this city, loving a city can be messy.
Mm.
Right? Loving people can be messy. I even told someone the other day, relationships are messy. So when you start loving people, it can get messy sometimes
Right.
because you're going to deal with people who have hurts, habits, and hangups, to use the CR language. But it can get very troublesome. And then you talk about all the things that have formed this community alone, all the things, all the different layers and the complexities. And most of the time when we get mad at it, like we're talking about, we're just attacking the surface of it all
Right.
and not taking time to understand the roots of everything. To use the old iceberg illustration, we always see is just the tip of the iceberg above water, which 90% of an iceberg is below water.
Right.
Right.
Right, and it's a huge thing that's going on. And so what do you do? How do you love a community? So you kind of got a few different approaches. One is, which we saw a lot of several decades back, when the cities were becoming if they want to use the hotbed of just messiness.
Mm.
What did churches do? They built churches out
Right.
in the suburbs. They kind of
Mhm.
fled from it, and we had that opportunity.
Mhm.
Phil and I and Josh, we all say that we are thankful
Yeah.
that
Absolutely.
CBC decided to stay downtown, not do that, because but we even see that today with fleeing neighborhoods, fleeing school systems, fleeing all these different things to get away from some of the mess.
Right.
Right. And so how do we actually engage then? So one option is we just flee from it. Another option is we stay and just keep our doors shut and don't do anything.
Build
Right.
walls.
Right. But then we'll say we are missional
Right.
and we expect people to come to us. So the model that was really huge in the 90s and early 2000s for church was the attractional model.
Mhm.
If we just build all the right programs, everybody will want to come to us.
Right.
Next thing you know, no one's coming to us because our attraction level does not meet the expectations of the public.
Right.
Sure.
Right. So they kind of become bored, or they just realize that
But-
they're only coming to be entertained, and we just can't entertain
And
them anymore.
consumerism doesn't work.
Yeah, it
That's
doesn't.
not the gospel.
No.
So to show up and I mean, we're not able to compete with other places in more well-off communities. We
Oh,
don't
no.
have a water slide into the baptismal
Yet.
tank or something like that. But we don't have all the stuff.
No, yeah, and there's a quote from the book Lasting Impact by Kerry Newhoff. He says, "No one will ever out Disney.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? But he says no one should ever out community, the church.
Right.
And so the third option, which is what we're going to talk a little bit more about, is intentionally engaging the community.
Mhm.
Right. So we've said the phrases a lot that we want to be the beacon of hope in downtown, that we want to, seek the good and prosperity of the city of Clarksburg and Harrison County. I know when I came here last year and I saw that sign, "We love Clarksburg," I got to preach the next week, and part of my message was from Jeremiah 29, which I believe is, so for context, the Israelites were removed because of their unfaithfulness, taken to exile in Babylon for 70 years.
Mm.
And they're like, what do we do?
Mhm.
Do we engage Babylon? Like, how do we? And Jeremiah writes a letter, and he says, "Build houses, settle down, plant gardens, eat what they produce, marry and have sons and daughters, find wives for your sons, give your daughters into marriage so that they may too have sons and daughters. Increase in number there, do not decrease. Seek the peace and prosperity of the city for which I have carried you into exile. Pray to the Lord for it," meaning the city, "because if it prospers, you too will prosper." Right? So he's like,
Yeah.
I want you to go to that city that I'm calling you into exile, and I want you to be who I've called you to be.
Yep.
Right? And so you see this kind of radical upside down way of thinking, upside down way of life, where it says, I want you to go be the people of God where I've called the people of God to be.
Right.
And so when we talk about how we love our city now and how we love our communities, wherever you are listening from, it's trying to live in an upside down way that doesn't make sense. So to go back about, a few hundred years ago, or a couple hundred years ago, there was a guy, Baptist history, Walter Rauschenbusch talked to this
Mhm.
idea about like taking the gospel into society.
Mhm.
So some, say, well, let's transform society by getting elected officials up there who will put laws into place, and then society will be good, which is never actually really worked.
Mm.
It never has. We'll just leave it at that. Whereas he said, no, we're going to transform society by being in it.
Right.
And that's kind of what we kind of operate the same way, is that when we, as a church, send people out, we're sending people out into our community
Mhm.
to be a blessing and transform us. So how do you guys see the responsibility from us and from you to love this community and love the city that you're in?
So, one thing that we intentionally try and do as a church is to make space for our people to be in the community.
Yeah.
I grew up in a church that had Sunday school, Sunday morning service, Sunday afternoon choir practice, Sunday night service, Monday night visitation, Wednesday night service, Saturday morning bus ministry.
It's a lot of church.
And a lot of it was well intentioned to go and reach a community, but we also weren't living in the community. We weren't, being part of our neighborhoods, and we weren't making space for those things. So, that's a balance. We've got to, do our best to disciple people, and we're trying to do that as well. Uh, but we believe that those things happen best not only in, Christian community, which we are very much, are always pounding that drum that you can't live the Christian life alone, that it's not
Right.
made to walk alone in isolation. And these things are best done in community with other Christians, but also in the community as well. And so we make space for that. And the point being that we have a responsibility as a church,
Absolutely.
the people,
Mm.
to go and when we're on the ball field, to show love and mercy and grace to people, not cuss out the referee or something like that, uh or
It's not always the referee's fault. Sometimes your kid's not that good.
yes, or sure, right,
That's a
yeah.
former coach talking to you. I just need to let you know that.
Or be involved in. I know Ed Rogers. I think he was a pastor in Parkersburg, involved in. I can't remember if it was Kiwanis or one of those
One
like
of those,
local
yeah.
groups, just for the purpose to be a presence in the community. And if you have those meetings are on Wednesday night, and you have Wednesday night church that you have to be at, you've got to make a decision. So now it's easy for us too to do nothing as well, but the hope is we're always trying to push people to be it part of the fabric of community, and to be involved in uh, programs and resources. For instance, like go serve at the Clarksburg Mission, or Friends Feeding Friends, or Sleep in Heavenly Peace, or the school board, or
Mhm.
to just be a presence in the community, so that people can see who you are, and to speak the words of Jesus, and to show the attitudes of Jesus. And that's built into our church. Is we Our hope is that we're a part of the community.
Yeah. How about you? Anything thoughts on that?
I mean, so just as a Christian, that makes me a disciple. Christians are,
Mhm.
we're all disciples. We're all students of Jesus. I mean, at the very core of all Jesus's teachings and his message, I mean, was love for others.
Mhm.
Mhm.
We got to love our neighbors as we love ourselves. And I think that I try to remember that foundationally as I think about this question, because I think we all definitely have a deep responsibility, if anything, to be the love that we want to see,
Yeah.
cast on the world.
Absolutely.
But other than that, I think you did a great job
Oh,
answering
yeah.
that question.
Yeah. Well, you do this practically though too, with a lot of different ways. You're involved in a lot of different stuff. Celebrate Recovery. You lead the music there, and
Right.
are you doing step studies and stuff too there?
So I've been involved in a step study
Okay.
over there. I'm leading small groups, and I'm also
Yeah, there you go.
being the assistant worship leader. But even my work over at the mission, like one thing I just try to foundationally remember with my faith is that love is the greatest out of all
Mhm.
those three things: faith, hope,
Mhm.
and love. Love is
Mm.
the greatest. Um, and I just try to show the kindness to other people that I want to see to myself, and just try to really be positive. I also like to spread hope. I think hope's
Yeah,
very powerful
absolutely.
as well.
Oh yeah.
And that's what bothers me, I think, when we talk about like the criticism of our community, is it's not very hopeful.
Right.
And our words have power, and our words uh, have impact. And if we negatively just talk about all the bad things, we miss out on all the good things that are happening in our
Oh yeah.
community.
There's
as
so
well.
much good stuff happening.
Right.
Well, and we're
Yeah.
told as Christians to, instead of complaining, to seek solution.
Right.
So I think that that's another thing we should all keep in
Exactly.
mind too.
Right. And if you've used that, the language of Jeremiah, they're like seeking the good and prosperity of the city and praying for it to prosper, because if it prospers, you prosper.
Right.
Like
Right.
this city's doing well.
Mhm.
We kind of love it, right?
Yeah.
Even if it's not, you still need to love it,
Well,
right? And
something
so,
we've even tried to do, just even as a church staff, is if there's a new business that
Mhm.
opens, then we have the opportunity to go, and especially if it's a restaurant,
We'll definitely go.
You're going to eat there, and we're going to try and.
is the donut shop open yet?
I don't think it is yet. Is
There's a
it?
donut
Do you
place
know?
coming.
The
I'm
Winston's
not
down.
sure.
It's right by the courthouse.
But that sounds like a good strategy to make connection with the donut shop.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
absolutely. Especially if they have a place to sit. We've done that at a couple different places, and our hope is because not just for economics, but we would love to see that poverty level get up to a more sustainable level,
Oh, yeah.
where people and children can have what they need. And part of that is going to be businesses, opening in Clarksburg. So
Right.
we try and do our best to,
Yeah.
and in Bridgeport too. We love it.
Yeah,
over there
and
as
I think
well.
it's even we've seen it with our partnership alongside WI, like this intentional engagement to be a partner with them, and love on the kids that are
Right.
there. And Josh has done an amazing job with the after class
Absolutely.
program.
Yeah.
And we've seen the lasting impact because of that. We've been engaging with families who we may not have been able to engage with had we
Mhm.
never engaged them.
Yep.
Right. Had we just waited for them to come to us, they probably would
Right.
never have come. But like with that, with Trunk or Treat, even VBS, like we're intentionally engaging our community and meeting people and trying to bring them to here, but
Well,
also go ahead.
something that I think that churches, I've been around a lot of different churches, and a lot of times they're wishing, and this is terrible when you think about it, they're wishing for people that aren't in their community to come. Like they want them to look a certain way,
Oh
and
yeah.
to have a certain amount of money or something like
Right.
that. They want, how do we reach this suburb development over here? Well, dude, we've got a hill full of people behind us right here that can walk to our church.
Yeah.
And how do we engage them? Because this is where this is our mission field, and love them. And absolutely, we've got some great people that drive from Fairmont or all these different
Sure.
places and come from Bridgeport, but they have that same missional attitude that they want
Right.
to reach the community that we live in.
Yeah.
I think you could get some visitors from even farther if you did get the water slide for the baptism pool.
I know.
One day.
We'll get
One
there.
day. One day. Wrap around the steeple and come back in. Yeah, that'd be fun. I'll quit that day. But the other thing, we kind of talked about this a lot, but one of the things that we're talking about is also, I don't think you can truly love a city that you don't know.
Sure.
And one of the things, it ended up being, it's been a headache. But if you don't know, my car got hit like 3 months ago, and I'm still in the body shop, but maybe. We'll see. But one of the things I got to do there for a while, and I was really enjoying it, was just walking to work, because I always get to interact with people out along the streets, just
Sure.
walking to work, or who waiting on a bus. That I just get to interact with people.
Mhm.
I've gotten to know a lot of people who just hang around downtown.
Yeah.
Know their names, know their stories, and these are the people you're going to pass by on your way to church. These are people who may approach you and ask you for something out in the parking lot when you're coming into church on Sunday. Start engaging them. Start asking them questions. Invite them in to the building with them. Have them come sit with you at church.
Mhm.
We've had people in our church. Recently, I can't remember the whole story, but saw someone with a flat tire,
Yeah.
and they helped fix their tire. Then they invited them to church, and they were here Sunday morning and Sunday night
Yeah,
for the
right.
Engage series.
That's so cool.
If we're not intentionally getting to know people, like even your neighbors,
Right.
You talked a little bit about again today's Halloween, so this is after the fact, but you mentioned on Sunday about the theological positions of Halloween, right?
Sure, right,
One of the things you had me open up the door, so I stepped out for a few minutes. So I didn't hear
right,
all of
yeah,
it. But one of the things I've always thought with Halloween, like trick or treating, it's an amazing way to get to know your neighborhood,
Right.
right? And you get to beg them for candy too.
Yes. Right.
But no, it's amazing to get to know your neighbors. Like if you don't even know the people you live next door,
Right.
to like, what are we doing?
Yeah. This is the one time of the year where it's totally acceptable to just knock on somebody's door and start talking to them.
And expect candy.
Yeah, right. And give me something.
Yeah.
And it's fun for the kids. Even if you don't
Oh, yeah.
have kids, it's an awesome opportunity for you to just make somebody's day better.
Oh yeah. But yeah, what else? I mean, like, how else have you all been able to get to know your community better? I mean, I know you're over in more Nutter. You're actually Clarksburg address, but it's practically
Yes,
Nutterfort, right?
Yeah. Which is a whole nother little
Weird.
community. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not weird. It's a nice place. I don't know.
No,
how
it's
you
weird
said
that
it.
it's not Nutterfort. That's what I'm saying.
But yeah, we've had Tori and I like to walk around the neighborhood, and we'll stop and get a chance to talk to people. We've had our neighborhood was really great at community driven stuff. We've and quite a few of them are believers as well, and I'm sure that's driven from that. But we have a block party every year, and we have a chat where we talk and give each other. Tori got some peonies from one of the neighbors. The other day, I found a pumpkin in my yard that just showed up under the apple tree. It was really weird, and not like yours. You grew yours. Mine was a full-grown pumpkin with no stem or anything. And I thought this is how cool my neighborhood is. But I thought, did someone just buy me a pumpkin and like leave it under? But actually, what had happened was our neighbor's pumpkin had rolled all the way down the hill and into our front yard. But
Did you return it?
when he came and got it, yeah,
Oh,
I
that's
wasn't home at
unfortunate.
that time. I would have, but that's one of the ways. This is a kind of a weird way to do it, and this is a little further out. But Scott and I and John play Call of Duty, and that's one of the ways that I literally invited people that I like. the dude at the haircut place over here.
Yeah.
Like, oh, dude, you play Call of Duty? Yeah, you got to jump up. Here's my screen name, and try and have that opportunity to, because it's a great place to talk.
Yeah.
It's really strange to have conversations on there, but it is a
Right.
lot of fun.
Well, I hate talking on the phone. Like, if you call me, I don't like it. I'll
that's the
text you all
worst.
day. I'll talk to you in person. I just don't like it. Phones aren't great anymore either. Like the flip
quality.
phones sounded awesome. You couldn't do anything else on them, but it's curved the right way.
Yeah.
And this like brick thing just doesn't work, and I can't hardly hear it. And there's stuff going on all over
You're
the
just
place.
getting old.
But yeah, that's probably it. But when you're talking on Call of Duty, you get a chance to really dig deep. You also, when people are distracted, I think you can get a little deeper with people because
Right.
they can't put up all the barriers and talk around.
No filter.
And also, you've got that like death is staring you right in the face.
Yeah, wow.
But anyway, that's another way.
Yeah.
Coached basketball for 1 year just as a way to try and get in the community. We're always looking for different ways. Just going to coffee shops. Josh is doing a lot better at that than I am right now. Partially because coffee shop chairs aren't always very comfortable, and you sit there for a couple hours. I'm like, oh, I can't move. But that's some of the ways. It's a great place for us to be creative.
Yeah.
Tori's done something where she's gone and during COVID, brought balloons to the ladies that work at McDonald's. She goes there and
That's cool.
she doesn't eat out a ton, but she loves McDonald's breakfast. She just wants a little.
It's good.
Yeah, right. And she doesn't even drink soda or anything like that. She just gets a cup of water with ice in it, and that's some good water if you get it at McDonald's. Anyway,
Interesting.
she would just go and bring balloons to them, just thank them for what they're doing. The school is another one we've tried to do. During COVID was another thing that we went and brought pizza to the nurses that not live up there. They practically lived up there during COVID, but we're always thinking of new ways to do that. And I know the mission does a ton of stuff for the community. The cool thing about the mission is people will come to you.
Right.
And churches, I'm sure, used to be that way. And we do have some. Val gets to interact with those people the most. But what are some ways you guys get to be part of the community?
So I've been super blessed because coming to this community as like an outsider who originally only came here for their own personal recovery journey, it's really cool now to be on the opposite side of that and to have built my faith in such a way and be exposed to such just like amazingly faithful people that just instantaneously, even without me really noticing it first, became mentors and people that I looked up to. So just seeing the way that some of those people are so intentional about making conversation with people just out, in the streets of Clarksburg, people that are sick, suffering, people that have problems, that we all have some form of problems, but there's different battlefields at which we of which we all take part in out there. But just even taking anybody that might be in a much higher station than yourself or a lower station, and just without judgment and without really any preconceived notions or anything, just engage those people. I never really liked just starting conversation. I used to be real anxious when it came to talking to people. But then whenever I go out on the streets with some of the people that I'm involved in Celebrate Recovery with, or people that are at the mission, like just walking alongside those people and seeing, them engage, after a while, I kind of realized, like, it's not like you always want to make conversation, but sometimes, you got to go that extra mile and be intentional. Right. And I think that's, like you said, one of the great things about working at the mission is a lot of those people come to me. Yeah. But I've transitioned now from a state where I just like relating with people. If I can find relating things, whether it be Call of Duty or whether it be our past struggles, being able to relate with somebody is a great pathway to engage them and be intentional about sharing faith with them, or about, just getting to know the community, because there's so many people out here that are, I would say street, walkers that don't necessarily have an address right now that I know by first name. And when I see them, I'm interested in how they're doing. And one day, if they want to change their life in a way maybe that I have, or I've seen others, then I can be a liaison and a bridge there. And I don't try to push that on them either. When I relate to them, I try to say, hey, I know that I kind of know what you're going through. Sure. And I don't always have the exact words, but it's just amazing because I feel like I'm given a lot of opportunities to do God's work even around here. And a lot of times that, to me, I'm just blessed because it involves connecting and networking with such a diverse group of people.
Absolutely. We've had people ask us, because we have, and this happened before any of us were here, just what do you call it? Reputation for being a place where someone that might have slept on the street the night before or might be struggling with drug addiction we have a reputation as a church that we can do a good job at that. And
Right.
we always got to keep working on it. But we've had people ask us, like, how do you do that? I just don't understand how you can, just have how do you reach these people? And Scott and I were like, you said, you just talk to them,
Meet them where they
just
are.
ask them what their name is,
Right, absolutely.
ask how they're doing, what they're interested in, where they come from, and that everybody, they're just people. They're just
Love
people.
'em.
Yeah, just love them, just people.
Love them.
And,
Here's real quick tips. Love them. Get to know their name,
mhm.
and then here's something I pride myself in. I think all of us have 3 conversation points that we're most comfortable talking about. And it's usually work related, family,
Right.
or one hobby,
Oh,
Yeah.
right? And so quickly find out some of those things, and those are easy talking points. And then honestly, I like useless knowledge
Sure.
because it comes up in random conversations
Right.
sometimes. Get your mind full of useless knowledge. There's like, you now know a lot of facts about Clarksburg that you've never known about.
Right.
So go up to some random person, ask if they knew about the serial killer who tried to blow up the FBI.
Right.
They may not have ever heard
That's
of
a
it.
good
Start talking
Yeah.
about it.
Well, that's a mixture of 2 stories.
2
so
different
that's
stories.
probably
So
why they
that's why they've never heard of it, because I just made it up.
I love
Um,
making people laugh, even if
yeah.
they're strangers
Yeah,
and I meet them in
right.
the first interaction. I just try to do something
Yeah,
completely
yeah,
that's
absolutely.
just they're not even expecting.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's a good bridge to be
Well,
able to
and
start a
sometimes-
relationship of some form.
people struggling with their identity. You can see that with people that walk down the street. They got their hood up
Right.
and their head down. Just learning someone's name, looking at them in the eyes, making them
feel
laugh,
important, like,
making them
making 'em
feel
feel very
important,
human.
Make them feel known.
and alive again.
Yeah.
Because a lot isolation and loneliness and struggle, which is what these habits that they've created are isolating things like
Right.
addiction and because you're hurting yourself and the people that you love, and it just causes so much problem. And just seeing them as a person is such a first step.
If I could for 1 second, I
Sure.
think one of the things that was really powerful to me, and since I'm sitting with 2 pastors, I'm sure you guys can help me with the biblical reference. There's a part where like Jesus is talking about a woman who's being like judged by a bunch of people, and he
Mhm.
says, "Do you really see this woman? Like, do you see this woman?" And I had a pastor that was giving a sermon, and he made it make sense to me because at the root of that, he's saying, no, you see her for what she's done.
Right.
You don't see her for the person she is, or what her statue or station, or
Right.
what her actual person is. And like,
Yeah.
so when he said that, it kind of made
Mhm.
sense, because I see people all day long, but do you really see
Right.
people? You
Yeah.
pass people all day long, but there's people that exist in this world now
Mhm.
where they walk through a populous area and they might see 1,000 people, but not actually notice
Right.
one
Big
thing.
time.
Like about
Big time. There was a Bible study we recently just did, and it talked about that, where zooming in on people,
Right.
And Jesus's history of there was crowds, but it's a lot of individuals that is these greatest stories that
Oh, yeah.
Jesus has, these personal conversations with them, and seeing people as a one, the
Right.
one,
He also intentionally went out of his way many
Right.
times to go interact
Absolutely.
with those ones.
right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And the funny thing about the story you mentioned with the woman that was going to be stoned with adultery is, not only did Jesus see her for who she was and the value that she had as I think does he call her daughter in
I
that?
believe so.
It's either that story or another one that's
Yeah.
similar to that, where there was identity.
We let you down on the reference.
Yeah,
but-
I'm not great at it. It just flies completely out as soon as I'm done studying it. But he also shows these people that were proud, and these people that were ready to condemn somebody their sin, and says, "He who has the first is the
Throw the
first sin
first
cast
stone."
the first stone." And I think most of the time where I struggle is I'm at
Right.
that person that can think I'm better than somebody else, and putting that stuff to the side and realizing that we all have our stuff, and mine might be on the outside and people might know about it, or mine might be on the inside and nobody knows about it, and I think I'm hiding it and I put on a front. But in both ways, we're all in the same boat, and Jesus is the one that's the rescuer to sink us from that
Yeah.
sinking ship.
That's awesome.
I think we all definitely can relate to the fact that it's easy to get that terminal uniqueness where we think we're all so
Yeah.
different, or our struggles are so different.
Yep.
But on a deep level, I think that was the most eye-opening to me, is that no matter what walk of life any of the people are, or anybody out there,
Right.
higher or lower than me, or whatever relative that would look like, is that at a deep level, we're all the same person.
Right.
We're all
Yep.
we're all a
Mhm.
brother and sister to one another, and it's
Yeah.
just it's amazing. It really I could talk for
Absolutely.
hours about that. So
Yeah.
I'll
Well,
stop
one
now.
thing me and you can both agree is that Scott's worse than both of us.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
yeah. Absolutely.
Wow.
He hasn't
just
played yet.
kidding.
No. Hey, so to wrap it all up, I want to say first off, thank you to John for joining
Yeah.
us.
Absolutely.
Man, you did so
We
good.
kind
We
of
might
we
have to
kind of
have you
joked about
back.
this like over a year ago almost when we first started this that you
Yeah.
eventually would be on here as a guest.
Yeah, you don't get anxiety from the way that you carry your speech. You've got a really good gift of
Thanks.
communicating. We were able to listen to your what do you call it, like testimony for CR? Is that what it was?
So that was a lesson I gave.
Oh, a lesson.
Yeah,
Okay,
that
I
was
couldn't
awesome.
remember.
I'm working on a testimony, but to be honest, if I can just let you in on some insight, when you asked me, I thought you were joking. I've known you guys both to be a bit of jokesters
Well,
at
that's
times.
I know you have a story like that with somebody saying that God was doing something with you,
Oh, yeah.
and that you might have skills that God can use. I know I thought that too. Like when someone's like, "Hey, can you teach this Sunday school lesson?" I'm like, no, what are you talking about? And so that's a good sign. If you think I'm the man that ought to be doing everything all the time, that's probably not a good sign.
Yeah.
God doesn't call the equipped; He equips
That's
the
right.
called.
Yeah,
There
I
you
heard
go.
that the
And
other
stay
day, and I
there.
have to remember that.
Right? Yeah, stay there too. That's
Yeah.
where you have to lean on Jesus. Yeah.
Let's wrap it up with this question. I didn't prompt or let you guys in on this question beforehand. I'm also going to ask the question to you all as listeners to start thinking through is what is your hope for this community and how do you hope to be a part of seeing that come to fruition?
What do you have first?
I just want to continue to do like the next best thing and to show Jesus's love through me, because I think that as long as you can meet people where they're at and you can continue, um, helping others to find Christ, that's really the end goal. But even if I can just help somebody in their circumstantial struggles and problems, that to me would be very rewarding and very successful.
Yeah.
On a community level, I just want to continue working where I work and in the kind of the outreach community. Because I found that there's not only a lot of personal reward you get back for doing that kind of work, but to me, it just hits home because I see a lot of guys who are lost who might be in their young 20s or in their youth where I was. Because when
Right.
I got out of the army, I mean, I was in a bad shape for a while.
Mm.
And to see that something else is possible and to see the love that you guys even show, God's love through you and then other people in this community, that's what I just want to give that gift back. Like
Yeah.
you've
Yeah,
given it
absolutely.
out to people.
Yeah,
So,
that's so I'm more my personality is much more of a like a if you want to talk in Christianese, more of a Martha type, where I'm much more of a like doer and task oriented person. And that's I'm constantly struggling with and constantly trying to remind myself to be a people person and to work on that side of it, and to see people as people and as moments and chances and opportunities. And that's what I want to get better at. And it's what I've been working on for 15 years as a pastor at trying to do that. And so pray with me about that. I'm trying to get better at engaging the community in that
Yeah.
way and be better at it.
My desire. So there's a book I read in college a long time ago. It said the heart cry of ministry is shouting the worthiness of Jesus.
Mm.
And I've said from the get go that that's my desire is that wherever I go and whatever I do, that's what I want to do. No matter where God plants us in this season of life, He has us planted in Clarksburg, and I don't know how long that season is. And no matter how long it is, I'm going to enjoy every
Forever.
second of it. What'd you say, forever?
Forever in Clarksburg.
No, that my goal is that while I'm here, that this community and the people I get to work with know that I love them, and I'm going to
Hmm.
always show them that I love them, and no matter what that looks like, and that when I leave here, that they still know that I love them and I will still do anything for them. I just want Clarksburg to know like that CBC is what we really truly mean that we love this community. Um, and we also have this image in our mind. I know a lot that we want to see downtown thrive again, and we want to be at the forefront of that.
Yeah.
Not one of the front reasons why it's thriving again, that people want to be here, want to be around each other again, and have a thriving community once again.
Right. And you talked about there not being very much available in West Virginia.
Mhm.
I know that our community, even if it does have high levels, we also have a very robust recovery
Oh my
community.
goodness, yes.
That I wish others. I think smaller towns probably are where they're struggling. If you go
Oh, yeah.
out, an hour in a direction from a bigger, but I'm super excited to support our recovery programs here.
Yeah.
Because they just make such a big difference. And
Yeah.
really, because I try and think about someone that might be in addiction. I've got kids and you've got kids but my child could be there at some
Mhm.
day. And I hope that there's something like that for them.
Yeah.
And so I want to support those things
Yeah.
as best as I can. And that's one of the things that was formative in ministry for me is to think about church as would anybody miss if Clarksburg Baptist Church wasn't here anymore.
Right.
And if we're not a church that our community would miss, we're missing something. You know,
Yeah.
we gotta be here for the people. And so that's our hope and our goal, and we're still pushing towards it. We can get better. And if you're here in the community and you don't have a church home, come on out.
Yeah.
And if you're not involved in some of these things that we've talked about, ways to do this, let's do it.
Yeah. Come to CR, listen to John 2.0, lead worship, and crush
Shred
it.
the guitar.
Phil and I are usually there in Chip Night. Come on
Mhm.
Chip Night.
Yeah,
Chip
it's
Night's
fun.
next Monday. Yeah, next Tuesday. Sorry.
Tuesday, yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's the 6th, I think, is November 6th. I think that's right. Or 7th. 7th. Come to Chip Night. That's a fun night. I honestly said it. It's one of the best worship services I go to
Mhm.
on a monthly
Yeah,
basis.
that's cool.
So come hang out with CR. Come hang out.
Can I
Come
give a plug for you guys too?
Sure.
Or if you guys would like, on Sundays, you could always come and see Pastor Phil, Pastor Scott, and Pastor Josh
Yeah,
here at
absolutely.
CBC.
By all means.
Hey, but we want to ask you that same question. Begin thinking about it. What is your hope for this community? Or if you're not from Clarksburg or Harrison County, what is the hope for the community that you live in? As God has placed you there for a reason. You are there at a specific moment, at a specific time, for a specific reason.
Yes,
So start asking God, why am I here, and what hope do I have for that community? And then ask yourselves, how are you going to intentionally be part of that transformation process? Because God has placed you there for a reason, and He's blessed you with the gift that you have to engage the world around you. So I want to say thank you all for joining us. Again, thank you to John for being a part of this. And we'll see.
Thank you.
You know,
Weird faith, take me home to the faith.
you just don't
that
sing along. You don't
I'm
know what to do.
weird.
Just look awkward.
I just look
West
awkward like me.
Virginia.
He changes the lyrics often.
Weird faith. Weird faith.
Version of that.
Weird
There you
faith. I'll be looking
Don't
for it.
encourage him. Wait. What am I-
Hey, our goal here is to stop being normal and start getting weird, because normal isn't working. Let's go do it.